Georgia's 1st congressional district, Congressman Buddy Carter. Congressman, thank you so much for joining me. There's a lot of reasons that China needs to be held accountable. Number one, the Uyghurs, which is not talked about enough. I'm just so stunned that so many people are looking away from the atrocities happening in China. But also when it comes to COVID-19, the origins of the virus, their lack of transparency at the beginning of the pandemic. I mean, the list goes on.
Absolutely. And what's happening now with the Uyghur forced labor is another atrocity that should never have happened. And I am very proud to have supported the Uyghur Forced Labor Prevention Act. I'm proud that it passed the House and it's been passed by the Senate. It will ban any imports from that particular region where this is taking place. The president has said that he will sign it, but we need to do much more than that. We have to hold China accountable. China is not our friend. China is not, they are a bad actor, and they have to be held accountable. And we have to make sure that we're not participating in this and we're not complying in this with the Olympics. I'm calling for the Olympics to be moved. Now, look, I know that these athletes have trained long, and I know that they train hard. They deserve to participate and to compete. However, for us to be compliant and to participate in this in China would send the wrong message to the world. Look at what they're doing. Look at what they're doing in Hong Kong. Look at what they're going to do in Taiwan and the threats that they pose in Taiwan. We need to stand up to them, just like the Women's Tennis Federation has stood up to them. We need to take a lead from them and have the courage and the fortitude to stand up to them.
Yeah, I'm glad that you brought that up, because there's a lot of people all over the issue when it comes to the diplomatic boycott, when it comes to the Olympics. That being said, I mean, I think it's toothless. I don't think it's enough. It's basically pointless if the athletes are still going to go there. And then also, too, what about the safety of our athletes? I mean, can we trust China?
Well, absolutely not. Ask the Women's Tennis Federation if you can trust them. I mean, there's a perfect example where the tennis player, we still don't know. We still don't know about her safety. And yet they're willing to stand up to them. We need to do this. If we participate in this in China, then this is nothing different than what happened in the 1930s when Nazi Germany was the host of the Olympics. This would be compliant on our part. Again, I know the athletes have trained hard and long. They deserve to be able to participate and to compete. However, we should move. We should demand that the Olympics be moved to another area.
And then obviously our interactions with China, it's a delicate balance, and it's a dance, if you will, because a lot of our economy is dependent on China, and we need to have trade. And what goes on there does affect business here in America, which kind of brings up the fact, something that the Trump administration had talked a lot about was manufacturing in the United States, American made. And, we don't want to be fully dependent or so dependent on our enemies.
Absolutely. And that's what we've learned through the pandemic. I mean, I think there's a difference in knowing something and realizing it. Well, we've realized during this pandemic that we're too dependent on China for our pharmaceutical needs in particular. And that's why I have legislation that will repatriate pharmaceutical manufacturers back from overseas and back to America so that we can produce our own pharmaceuticals. And 90% of all the ibuprofen in the world comes from China. 90% of all the antibiotics. That is not a good position for us to be in. And now you mentioned earlier about China and not cooperating early on when the virus came out. We learned just recently in the Doctors Caucus that there was a downturn in the amount of PPE that was coming from China as early as September of 2019. That shows you they knew what was going on. They understood it, and they knew what was going on, yet they didn't help and alert anyone whatsoever.
Yeah, exactly. I want to shift gears here and talk about Build Back Better. It looks like the Build Back Better dream for the Biden administration and some of the Democrats, it's crashing and burning before their eyes. They are predicting now that they're not going to be able to get it passed before Christmas, which was the goal. Meantime, Senator Bernie Sanders is losing his mind over it. We have some video, roll tape.
And you got two people who say, you know what? Hey, if you don't do it my way, I don't care what the president wants. I don't care what 48 of my colleagues want. It's my way or the highway. And that I regard as arrogance. You can disagree. Look, I have disagreements, as you well know. All right, you fight for your ideas, but you don't say my way or the highway.
Thank God for Sinema and Manchin, because, I mean, this would be disastrous on our economy. We're already dealing with inflation. We can't keep printing money. We can't keep passing these trillion-dollar social program spending bills.
Absolutely. It would only add fuel to the fire of inflation. And inflation has reared its ugly head now, as high as it's been in decades. And this would only add to it. And keep in mind, when they say, oh, we've lowered the price tag down to 1.75 trillion, that is total malarkey. The CBO has already come out and said, if you put these 150 plus programs into place, the true cost is going to be about $5 trillion, and it's going to add over $2.5 trillion to our national debt. Thank goodness the parliamentarian in the Senate has ruled against the amnesty for illegal immigrants. However, there's still $80 billion in there to add on 87,000 IRS employees. It still does away with the Hyde Amendment that would prevent taxpayers' money to be used for abortions. There's still so many bad things included in it. Thank goodness for Joe Manchin. Thank goodness for Kyrsten Sinema.
Exactly. Now, I wanted to ask you about this. I know you're not a Democratic strategist, but I found this really interesting. So the White House says that Biden plans to run for re-election with Harris in 2024. But then when Harris was asked about it, she said she hadn't discussed running for re-election with Biden. So what is going on here?
Who knows? I mean, I don't think either one of them knows. You know, the most frequent question I get asked in the district is, who's calling the shots now? And I don't know what the answer to that, to be quite honest with you. I know it's not Joe Biden. I know it's not Kamala Harris. I don't know who's calling the shots over there, and I'm not sure they know who's calling the shots. Both of them have the lowest approval ratings. Vice President Harris, the lowest vice presidential approval ratings ever. It's unbelievable. Neither one of them are good choices to be leading this country. And I would submit to you that the big part of the problem that we're having with China and in foreign relations is because of the weakness that they exhibit on the world stage, that Joe Biden exhibits. And these countries understand that. Putin and Xi, all of them, they understand what's going on here. They know they've got us in a very precarious position right now with poor leadership.
Yeah. And then obviously this is reflecting in the polls. American people are very concerned, if you will. Nearly 2/3 of Americans say they doubt that they can trust Biden. Another poll saying younger Americans are turning away from Biden as concerns over 2022 mount. I mean, the Biden administration hasn't really been delivering on their promises to the Democrats that they made. And just in general, just look at the leadership, as you pointed out, it's so weak. And every day, as we continue on with this pandemic, I think back when Biden said he was going to end this pandemic, meantime, we've had more deaths in 2021 with the vaccines available and people boosted than we did in 2020. I mean, all these months later and everything that we know.
Yes, they don't have it under control. There's no question about that. It's very unfortunate. They want to say, follow the science, and yet they do just the opposite. Now they want these mandates in place. You know, I'm here at the Georgia Ports Authority in the 1st District of Georgia, and we're talking about labor shortage here. We're talking about needing truck drivers, all of these things that we need, and yet they want to impose a vaccine mandate that's going to put people out of work. And yet, 6 months ago, healthcare workers were our heroes. Now we're going to fire them if they're not vaccinated. All of these, they have no control whatsoever, no grasp of what's going on here. They're not looking at natural immunity as they should be. They're only thinking, oh, everybody gets jabbed and that's it. Well, look, I'm an advocate for the vaccine. Please understand that as a healthcare professional. I believe it's safe and effective, and I hope everyone gets it. However, it should be a decision made by you and your doctor, you and your pharmacist, not by you and the federal government.
Exactly. Well, Congressman, all great points. Thank you so much for your insight. We really appreciate you joining us on the show.
Thank you.